Hi everybody. It just took me a minute to get this streaming thing figured out, but I'll get faster. So today we're reading The Cat from Outer Space, and I am on chapter 3. Hopscotch was the code name for a mothballed, lighter-than-air airfield, uniquely isolated. It had been used infrequently since World War II. But from time to time, blimps and experimental dirigibles were tested and housed on its grounds. There had been some Defense Department talk of using helium craft for heavy military cargo. But not now, of course, but sometime in the future. And in any case, who really knew? Weapons were never declared obsolete in the Defense Department, merely pigeonholed. So the field was kept open and fully staffed. Suppose Russia decided to go in for blimps. Hopscotch was well guarded. A distant light faintly illuminated the 3 cars parked outside the small hangar. One was the general's command car. 2 others were marked NASA. 2 soldiers accompanied by fierce patrol dogs moved inside a cyclone fence topped with electric barbed wire. In bold letters, a sign read, U.S. Airfield. Trespassers will be prosecuted. In the far corner of the field were barracks and tin-plated buildings. The silhouettes of tanks and weapon carriers could be seen in the distance, but no one from this base was admitted to the hangar this night. Only experts, by invitation, with clearance. This had been General Stilton's specific order. His aides stood a respectful distance behind him as he conferred with one of NASA's experts. 20 yards to the right of the object of interest, 2 scientists from NASA wearing white jackets, white slippers, and white gloves moved gingerly inside the spaceship, cautiously testing features of the craft with metered instruments. High above all this, secure in the rafters, rested a cat. He observed without display emotion or alarm. In fact, he was rather a patient creature, slender and assured, whose fur was short and whose color resembled those of Abyssinian breed. As a pet, he would have been nice to fondle. The spaceship had been placed directly in the hangar center. It had taken on the coloring of the hangar's interior, dull orange. Obviously, some sort of defense mechanism. Now the eyes barely circled and the sound was muted. The 2 NASA technologists examined the console of the spaceship. The instruments, it seemed, were at very low eye level, and manual dexterity appeared to be necessary for their operation. There were no levers, buttons, or switches, and no chairs as such, only protuberances that broke up from the floor for what purpose was anybody's guess. Amazing, said the first scientist. It uses adaptive coloration. The big question is, where does it get its propulsion? Asked his colleague. Beats me, but if I had to take bets... He nodded toward an oval-shaped piece of equipment. Whether it was metal or plastic was difficult to judge, but it was shaped like an artichoke and appeared to emit an inner source of light. In fact, a 4-inch rainbow aura enveloped the sharp-edged leaves. The size of a man's hand, this artichoke turned ever so slowly in space, unattached in a transparent box 3 feet above the base of the cabin. No wires, cells, or transistors were attached to it. Nothing, in fact. The phenomenon intrigued the 2 men. One ran an instrument over it. No reaction, he said. Below, several yards away, General Stilton was listening intently. An administrator from NASA was saying, unquestionably, a brilliant technology achievement, General. There is nothing like it in the state of the art. You trying to tell me something, Allison? The general said. It's definitely not one of ours, General. How about Russia? Asked Stilton. Certainly not Russia. It's far beyond the capacity of any nation on... He was interrupted. The General had had enough pussyfooting. Okay, Ellison, lay it on the line. Whose is it? The NASA chief studied the officer. I don't know, he said. The General roared. Well, we'd better find out, believe you me, double pronto, because if you don't know where that thing came from, and I don't know where it came from, this country's in trouble. Big, big trouble. Yes, sir. No, man-made, he said. Not man-made, he says. What's that leave us? Outer space? Allison nodded, with no sign of the pilot. Big, big trouble, cried the General. While you and I are talking, gentlemen, this very minute, some slimy, green-headed, 12-legged creep could be crawling into the White House. High in the rafters, the cat rose. He yawned, then stretched, then lay down again to await developments. Suddenly, the sound from the spaceship ceased. The eyes blinked off, then stopped orbiting. To the startled gathering, the pattern of the ship grew from a dull orange to its natural color, burnished silver. The General's mouth was agape. What's going on up there? He bellowed. The two NASA scientists stepped out of the cabin and peered down in triumph. One held a 3-foot-long pair of laboratory prongs, which grasped the transparent box. Dead center, the artichoke was spinning slowly. We have it, General. Definitely the energy source, his colleague asserted. That tiny thing? Cried the General. No question, was the reply. The General strode up to the ship and arched his head back for a clearer view. Lord help us, he was heard to mutter. Then he turned, arched his shoulders, and addressed the assemblage. With that kind of know-how, they'll be dusting us off Cloud 9. Colonel Woodruff said, Gentlemen? But the General interrupted. This would well be the gravest crisis in our nation's history, called Stilton. Allison said, In my opinion... No opinions, cried the General. This is no tinker toy we're playing with, gentlemen. Believe you me, we're in kindergarten compared to this capability. I agree, the Colonel nodded. And running out of time. Stilton cracked the crop. I want to know who made that thing, who flew it, and where it came from. Not tomorrow. Double pronto now. We'll get our best minds down here, General, said NASA Chief. You better, your sweet life you will. Your best minds and our best minds and the fattest IQs in the nation. We're getting our tail out of this ringer, Woodruff. Yes, sir. Get Hungerford at air. Order the General. Call Steinmetz at Hopkins. Laser Bills and Cranhammer. Get them Harvards off their tennis courts. Yes, sir. We're up against genius, gentlemen. We'd better come up with some genius of our own. Libby, are you